بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين وخاتم النبيين الحبيب المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته الكرام المنتجبين. In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, may the peace and blessings be upon all the prophets, especially Prophet Muhammad, and upon his purified progeny and the believers of his companions. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace and blessings be with you and upon you, dear brothers and sisters. Thank you for joining us tonight. It is such a delight to see you, that you are doing well. May Allah protect you and keep you safe, inshallah. We continue with the Quran study, chapter 25, al-Furqan. Today we will start with verse number 11. So I'll read the Arabic and Hajar Raza will read the English, and then we'll study it together, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بل كذبوا بالساعة وأعتدنا لمن كذب بالساعة سعيرا.
But no, they have denied the hour, and for the deniers of the hour we have prepared for them a flame.
So previous verses mentioned about excuses that the pagans and arguments that pagans brought to reject the faith, to reject the ministry of the Prophet, to reject the revelation and the faith of Islam. I don't want to repeat these arguments and why they and the reasons they said why they rejected the faith. They said why an angel is not with him, why this prophet is walking in the streets and in the market, why he eats food, so on and so forth. Here in this verse, the Quran says those are basically not the true reasons. The reality is that they are rejecting the faith because they do not want to believe in the hereafter. This is the reality. This is what the Quran says. You know, the faith of Islam is based on three important principles. Among a lot of tenets, but these are the most important principles. Believing in God, that God exists and He is one, which is called Tawheed. Believing in the prophets, that God has sent prophets to save humans, to guide and save humans. And also the third one is the hereafter, that there is resurrection after this life. God will judge people based on their deeds in this life. So the Quran says the rejection of the faith is because they do not want to believe, especially in the last one, the hereafter. Of course, the Quran used the word al-sa'a, the hour. They deny al-sa'a. We've talked about what al-sa'a or the hour means. The hour and the expression of the Quran is at the end of time on this earth, the end of life on this earth, and the beginning of the hereafter, which will lead to a day called a day of judgment, that God will judge people based on their acts in this world, and based on what they have done, either they will be rewarded for their good deeds, or they could be punished or forgiven for their evil work. So the pagans specifically didn't like this one, because they knew if they do not change their behavior, they will be doomed to hellfire. They will be punished because they didn't want to change their behavior. They, in fact, they were fond of war and violence. They loved to enjoy their privilege of being an elite of strong and wealthy, who can easily crush the weak and the slave in their community without being responsible for what they have done. Their culture of considering women as a property for men, so on and so forth. So they did not want to change this behavior, and they knew that this is something that in the faith of Islam and other faiths as well is something that is not tolerated and could be punishable. So this is why they rejected the faith, and this is why the Quran says the rejection of the faith most probably is not because of the reasons they mentioned. These are just excuses and arguments, but the real reason is that they did not want to believe in the Day of Judgment. And God says in the Quran, for those who do not believe in the Day of Judgment, those who want to continue their attitude that is violating the principles of justice and fairness, there is punishment for them. وَأَعْتَدْنَا لِمَنْ كَذَّبَ بِالسَّاعَةِ, those who reject the hour, the Day of Judgment, the concept of the hereafter, because of their own wrongdoings and evil acts. Of course, there is a punishment. The punishment in this verse is called Sa'ir. Sa'ir is an expression about fire that the next verse will talk about it more. So verse number 12, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. إذا رأتهم من مكان بعيد سمعوا لها تغيظا وزفيرا.
When it sees them from afar, they will hear its fury and roar.
So this verse is giving us little expression, a little description about this fire or blazing fire as the Quran mentioned it. Because I go into more details about this description, I'd like to mention an important point in my own opinion about believing in things beyond physics. When I say physics, physical, things that beyond our senses. So God has described himself for us in the Quran and Revelation. He also told us about the hereafter, about resurrection, about the Day of Judgment, about paradise, about hellfire, about rewards and punishments, so on and so forth. So far in this world, these are metaphysics. These are beyond being physical, so we can understand. God has described them. He described himself, his attribute, and the hereafter in the best manner that we can understand, we human can understand. Noting that we humans, though there is a huge advancement in science and technology and knowledge, humans have a very limited capability to understand everything, especially things beyond metaphysics. We still do not understand things related to death, for example, diseases. So we have a limited knowledge, but on top of the limited knowledge, humans have limited capability to understand everything, especially things beyond time and space. I have mentioned this many times in the past. So when it comes to the hereafter, to the Day of Judgment, to resurrection, paradise, hellfire, and so on and so forth. God has described them in the best manner to the level of our understanding. Whether we understand the reality or not, it's a problem with us, not with the revelation. Let me give you an example that maybe bring the meaning closer to your understanding. Imagine your own 5 years old child or a grandson or a granddaughter asks you about something that you believe is beyond their level of understanding. Imagine, they're asking about something they see on the news, about a disease, about cancer, about racial discrimination. What is racial discrimination? Or about some simple things. Imagine his or her mom is expecting a baby and he is asking a question. So what do? You do your best to simplify the answer in words he or she understand, to bring the concept very close to his or her understanding. Whether he or she will understand the total reality about that issue is a different thing. The problem is not with you. The problem is with the limited understanding of a very, very young child. Same with us, our understanding is limited when it comes to things beyond physics. But God has described these things in words we can understand and bring it closer to our minds. With having said this, let's go to this verse and try to study it. However, before we start studying this verse, the miracle of the Quran is that God has described a lot of metaphysics in the Quran, whether it is the hereafter, the angels, about himself. In a way, every generation of humans understand it based on their own knowledge and the information available for them. So one verse in the Quran could be understood in a way 200 or 400 or 500 years ago, different than what we understand today. And we understand it in a way different than people who will come in 200 or 500 years from now. That's the miracle of the Quran. And this verse is a beautiful and a great example of what I would like to say here. So the verse it says, when it sees them from far away, إِذَا رَأَتْهُمْ مِنْ مَكَانٍ بَعِيدٍ. Who sees who? Of course, the verse talks about the hellfire, sa'ir, the word that it was used in the previous verse, hellfire. When hellfire sees the wrongdoers, that's what it is meant, from far away. Now, there is a question here. How come fire sees people? That's a question. A lot of commentators have offered their opinions, answers. Hellfire does not have eyes to see people. Then how it sees people? And how it in fact sees wrongdoers, but not the good doers. That's another question that we would like to study it tonight. commentators have brought a variety of opinions. What does it mean by hellfire sees people, and especially the wrongdoers? إِذَا رَأَتْهُمْ مِنْ مَكَانٍ بَعِيدٍ. Have brought a lot of answers and mentioned their opinions. Not necessarily wrong, but what I want to say is that possibly we can understand this verse better or in a different way. Let us not use judgmental words like better, but say differently than before. And let me mention this example. About maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I heard, and I watched a presentation. I do not remember honestly where I watched it, who was the presenter. I forgot all of that, but I still remember briefly the content of that presentation. The speaker there was talking about smart weapons, and he would bring a lot of images and videos about smart weapons, and he showed that there will be in the future, or it is right now available, a weapon that may target specific individuals from very far and target them among a huge crowd of thousands of people. Target specific individuals without hurting the person that is standing next to them. And he mentioned the details. It could be because of the DNA or because of variety of other technical advancement. It could be because of face recognition or variety of other reasons. So there are smart weapons who can actually target a specific people and leave the rest, not to harm the rest. Now we might understand this concept of hellfire seeing the wrongdoers and targeting them rather than everybody. We can understand this maybe better now, or differently. Maybe in the future, in 200 years, they will understand it in a different manner, in a different way and fashion. When from far away, when the wrongdoers are there, the hellfire sees them, and then they can hear the anger and its noise and the roar and the anger and this and the noise of the fire, while those who are standing next to them and close to them, maybe they do not understand, because this is how hellfire is a smart one. It only targets the wrongdoers. Yes. And now verse number. If there is a question or comment, I'll be glad to hear or answer it if I can. Verse number 13. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. وإذا ألقوا منها مكانا ضيقا مقرنين دعوا هنالك ثبورا.
And when they are flung into a narrow place while they are chained together, they will pray for extinction there.
So it seems that the wrongdoers, if God judged them to go to hellfire, to serve their terms in hellfire, they will be directed in a way to be thrown into a very small place in the hellfire. Hellfire is huge, but they will be thrown in a very small space there. May God, we seek shelter in God from this. We ask Him for forgiveness. May God save all of us. When they are thrown into hellfire there because of the pain, they will ask for extinction. They will ask for, in a way, death. There is no death in the hereafter. They ask for death because of the level of the pain. This reminds us of those people who are sometimes in a prison. They commit suicide, or they try to commit suicide. Probably you know somebody who was very famous in human trafficking just a year ago, or less than a year ago, who was jailed, and he committed suicide in jail. A very famous name. So this is natural. They cannot think that they're going to spend their 30, 40, 50 years in jail, so they commit suicide. Same with those who will be doomed to hellfire because it's beyond their tolerance, so they ask to be destroyed, to die. But of course, we know in the hereafter there is no death. All right, and verse number 14. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. لا تدعوا اليوم ثبورا واحدا وادعوا ثبورا كثيرا.
But they will be told, today, do not plead once, plead a lot.
Somebody will tell those wrongdoers, once is not enough. Today, crying to plead for destruction or extinction, one time is not enough. You need to keep pleading and crying for destruction. First of all, who would tell them? This is the first question. Who would tell them once is not enough? Keep crying, for example. Commentators say angels. Angels will tell them, one time is not enough. Do it. Keep doing it many times. And then commentators say, their cry is not going to answer it. They'll stay there, keep crying, and of course there is no death in there. But there is a question here. When I read these comments by commentators, why would the angel tell them something that is not useful? If crying and crying and crying for destruction is not useful for those wrongdoers, why would the angels tell them about this? Could be, my understanding is that they are saying this in a sarcastic way, because those wrongdoers in this life, they mock the believers. They make fun of them. And in return, this is what the angels are doing in the hereafter. Or, in fact, there could be, and this is also what I believe, there is a possibility. It's not beyond the mercy of God that after a while God would, forgive them. If they keep crying and keep crying, God will forgive them. Though they are crying for destruction because of death, but there is a possibility that the angels say, keep crying, maybe God will forgive you for your crying and asking to end this, because when they ask for death at that time, it means in reality to end their suffering and their pain, and it is absolutely not beyond the mercy of God the merciful, to grant them forgiveness. Yes. And verse number 15. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم قل أذلك خير أم جنة الخلد التي وعد المتقون التي وعد المتقون كانت لهم جزاء ومصيرا.
Say, O Muhammad, is this better or the eternal garden promised to the God-conscious people? It will be their reward and their final result.
Yes, you Prophet Muhammad, tell those pagans, which one is better, the hellfire or the eternal paradise? You got to choose. You got to choose between keeping your behavior, continue doing what you are doing, abusing others, doing injustice, also doing injustice to women, doing injustice to slaves, to the weak, denying the faith, hurting Muslims and persecuting them, and eventually the outcome of all of this is hellfire. Or being mindful of God, and would God grant you admission to paradise? Which one is better? That's your own decision to make. Of course, the answer might look very easy, and it is easy. Of course, hellfire is in no way is better than paradise. Of course, and obviously, paradise is better than hellfire. However, in reality and in the practice, again, the answer is easy. The practice doesn't sound to be very easy. In reality, in real life, practicing this could be very difficult. Let me give you an example. Someone who is addicted to smoking, just smoking in general, and he or she knows the harm of smoking, but he or she cannot give up. They know, he or she know that how smoking is harmful for their health, but yet they continue smoking. So knowing an aspect knowing a fact does not necessarily mean a person would behave based on his knowledge. There are many other elements who influence the behavior of people. However, the Quran is using a very simple common sense. This is what the Quran calls for. Calls for people to use their common sense, be mindful of God, and win the paradise, rather than involve and engage in evil work and be doomed to hellfire. Because God says paradise is promised for those who are mindful of God, not for the evildoers. God, التي وعد المتقون. God has promised the eternal paradise to the people who are mindful of Him, mindful of God, and those who do good deeds, it is a reward for them. كانت لهم جزاء. It is a reward for them. ومصيرا. And it is their own destiny, their final destination. Yes, with this verse we come to the end of our study for tonight. If there is a question or a comment, please, I'll be happy to hear it, and if I can, I will answer. Thank you.